Sarah Baker and Paul Reiser star in the third season of Netflix's The Kominsky Method. I'm David Buchanan with Book Gold Derby. It's such a pleasure to have both of you with me today. The season really chronicles a new phase in Mindy and Martin's relationship, but not everything about it is particularly rosy. So I'm wondering, and I love that about the relationship this season. I'm wondering, what is it you see in each other's characters that helps you kind of weather the new challenges that come up throughout the season? And we can start with Sarah, and then I'll throw to you, Paul.
You know, I think they're both quirky people in different ways. And I think Mindy loves Martin's quirks. And you know, Martin is a sweet, good person. And I think no matter what happens sort of outside of them, I think she always has that in mind. And so that sort of, you know, that love and affection is what keeps bringing her back. And the ponytail, of course, obviously.
Paul, how about you?
You know, it's funny you say not everything is rosy, because if it was all rosy, you'd have no comedy. Comedy necessitates things to go awry. And Chuck Lorre did a great, a really clever thing with introducing the introduction of money into their life, that suddenly Mindy falls into money and money messes up a lot of people. And I think you're right. I think Sarah is right. I think there was never a thought. Clearly, Martin, my character, is a guy who was a public school teacher for 30 whatever years. There's not a guy who was chasing money. But if you suddenly put it under his nose, it's like, that's going to make things crazy. And, you know, money, they always say money problems are never really about money. It's about everything else. And so it triggers these insecurities and these pieces of personality in both of them. But I think what's so appealing about Sarah's character is that she's such a straight shooter. On one hand, she calls Michael on all his crap. She calls Martin, me on all my stuff. But at the same time, you see her vulnerability. She falls prey to being manipulated by her father and feels this pull. So there are all these different plates in the air spinning, and I think it makes for really fun comedy.
Yeah, absolutely. Sarah, when you started on the Kominsky Method 3 seasons ago, I'm wondering where you envisioned your character going over the course of however many seasons you thought the show might run. And how do you feel about the end of the series, in which, Mindy does have a very happy ending, but there's also a lot of complexity there too?
Yeah, I didn't know where it was going to go. I mean, in the beginning, in the second season, we sort of started to see more of like, okay, so who is Mindy outside of this one relationship with her dad, and sort of outside of this place of the acting studio and her role there? And I think it was a natural evolution, because in the first season, Mindy's still sort of kind of jockeying with her dad for authority in some ways and for his respect. And I think in the second season, when he sort of turns over the studio to her and is like, no, you should run this place. I think that allows her to calm down a little bit. So I think it was a natural time for Chuck to bring in this love in her life. And I think for her too, probably to welcome in, to focus more on a personal relationship now that this thing seemed to have sort of been mended and somewhat steady with her dad. So yeah, it's been interesting to see that evolve and just get to know a little bit more of who Mindy is, and see that, as Paul said, that vulnerable, sweeter side of her in her, love relationship.
Yeah, absolutely. And Paul, on your part, you're certainly no stranger to relationship sitcoms, but the relationship between Martin and Mindy is so different from anything you've really done before. Can you talk a little bit about what it is about the dynamic between the characters that allowed you to tap into something perhaps as an actor you've never had a chance to do?
These are interesting questions. Martin is very is a different character for me in the he's so comfortable in his quirkiness, and he seemingly seems to not, he doesn't seem to have vanity or awareness. So and that's very fun to play. He can just, he's just this really good spirited, cheerful guy. And then, in his wake are all these people going, he's just odd. But he does not seem to be aware of that. And that's very freeing. And there's I can't remember now if it was this season or last season. I guess it's in the wedding scene. But there's Chuck wrote this beautiful thing where both Mindy and Martin each acknowledge that they had made peace with the fact that they'll probably be alone. They've gotten pretty, well along in years and not found a mate, and will just come to accept it. And they're both surprised that they saw something in each other that fit, and that's what you look for. You just, oh, there's my mate. It's a different journey, and certainly in terms of relationship, it's a very different than like what the Mad About You relationship was, and where he wore all his insecurities on his sleeve, and this guy does not. And it's a very sweet love story. It's a nice relationship that Chuck has written for us.
Absolutely, no question. I'm wondering from the both of you, if you could talk a bit about balancing the show's really interesting tone. As you said earlier, Paul, there's no comedy without some kind of drama or complication. But the show always had, across all three of the seasons, a really nice balance of happiness and grief, love and fear and loss. Could both of you talk about how do you play that? How do you balance that, especially when it's ever shifting in each episode? There's so much going on. Paul, we can start with you.
I think that's all to Chuck's credit. Chuck Lorre is such a master and of the half-hour form, which is very formulaic in a way. There certainly is a formula. It's very joke oriented. And it's meant for longevity. You want to get 7, 9, 11, 12, 13 seasons. So that sort of confines you to, you never want to go too far. You never want to take too many chances with the stories, with the characters. In this format, they're not aiming for 9 seasons. They're not bound by commercials. They're not bound by a lot of the rules that are in effect with a regular sitcom. So the characters are funny, the stories are funny, but they're not telling jokes. There's no laugh track, there's no audience there. And so it mirrors life. In life, you sit and you have a really serious conversation and, something falls out of your nose, like, oh, that's a moment of levity, but that doesn't change the course of the conversation. So it really is a very realistic show. I mean, so the balance is in the writing. We never really play for the laughs. We know what's funny, obviously. We want to make sure it's, but these characters are not trying to be funny. They're just trying to find their balance in a day-to-day, moment-to-moment, which is what people do. Sarah, did I say anything that makes sense there?
A lot that made sense. I would say at least 88%.
It's fine. It's a B.
Good.
B plus.
But Sarah, any thoughts on that? What was it like for you to play so many different emotions, even in just the course of a single scene?
Yeah, I mean, I think Paul's right. That is life. I sadly attended a memorial service this weekend, and one moment you're crying your eyes out, and the next moment you're laughing, with your memories of the person. And that is how life is. It's not neat and tidy in little sections, like this section you enjoy, this section you hate, it's all blended together. And, from an actor's perspective, I think that's where we rely on the writing, and that's where we rely on our directors. We had Andy Tennant and Beth McCarthy Miller with us this season, and those are the people you look to make sure you are sort of keeping, because you just have to play the moment as an actor. But those are the people that sort of say, okay, that was great. Now let's try one that's maybe a bit more grounded, or the other way, have a bit more fun with it. So that's where the tone comes in. We sort of just have to be there in the moment and hopefully do justice to Chuck's writing, and then let somebody else pick and choose sort of which takes and which versions are keeping the tone straight for the audience, really.
And also, to keep in mind is, I think that the premise of the show, the I don't say mission statement, but the core of the show is dark. It's about seeing, somebody in their 60s, 70s, and beyond, looking at life, and your body is not the same, and your sex drive is not the same, and your dreams have not necessarily come true. So the show starts with that premise, like, oh, we're at this particular moment in life. There's a lot of reality to face and come to terms with. So if that's your premise, then you hang the ornaments on that tree are, yes, and I'm getting up to pee 11 times a night, and yes, last season he gave my character had a heart attack, but he soiled himself at Musso and Frank's table. It's like, all right, that's tragic, funny, it's all in one. But that's also it's a big part of what makes this show work so well is writing that balance, and Chuck has done such a great job in creating this very unique flavor, because I don't know another show that has this beautiful combination of comedy and not comedy.
Absolutely. And one of those exact kind of situations, Sarah, to go back to you, is the opening episode and scenes of this season in which Mindy inherits a sum of money from Norman. And I just love the fact that, the reaction to that is not, pure jubilation, but there's some kind of trepidation. She hates to keep a secret from Martin, which her father, Sandy, kind of instructs her to do. Could you talk a little bit about playing the tension of keeping that secret? And we see how that unfolds over the course of the season. But also, what do you think some of the roots of that kind of tension and fear are for the character, especially in light of what we learn about her parents' relationship in this third and final season?
Yeah, I mean, it was a fun thing for Chuck to sort of inject into the proceedings, because it's a lot of money. That's life-changing money for anyone. And it's certainly not something I think both, Paul said for his character, not something as a public school teacher that was clearly a huge focus for him. And I think for Mindy too, you have to imagine, people that grow up in LA and are surrounded, are somewhat adjacent to the industry. They see sort of that wealth. You see what it can do to people. And I don't think it's something that Mindy is ever particularly interested in. I mean, she's a very capable person, and past making a living for herself, I don't think she's probably thought about it much, but it does make you're forced to confront it. You get a big amount of money like that, and it's like, oh, okay, well, what does this mean for me? And I think in the case of Mindy, it's, Sandy has his hangups too, and he immediately sort of gets in her head about keeping it away from Martin and that potentially changing things with them. And really, in that case, I think it's about Mindy sort of overcoming that and realizing, no, this relationship is stronger than this money. And yeah, maybe it sends both of them off the rails a little bit, but it's ultimately about their relationship, and it's actually not so important unless you make it too important.
Yeah, and finally, Sarah and Paul too, there's a great scene in one of the episodes in which Sarah, your character Mindy, comments about how much she loves watching her parents kind of, playfully interact for the first time in Lord knows how long. I'm wondering if you could both talk about what it was like for as actors and as Sarah and Paul to watch a reunion of Kathleen Turner and Michael Douglas, especially because I think Mindy expresses exactly what the audience is feeling in that moment. You just love to watch them, play and have fun. Sarah, we can start with you and then throw to Paul.
Yeah, I mean, you're exactly right. I mean, I think, Paul and I were feeling that exact way, like, we can't believe we're here getting to witness this. And as you said, witness, it from the perspective of just seeing these two human beings of Kathleen and Michael. They have so much care and tenderness and respect for each other. They're, unlike their characters, it seems to be a fairly uncomplicated relationship. It's pretty genuine. They really care about each other. They were happy to be working together again. They have a lot of respect for each other. And but then as characters, they got to have this fun, layered, complicated past. And I think, for Mindy, she's never really had, it has become in a beautiful way, a more uncomplicated relationship where the edges have been worn off, and now they just get to have that history. They get to have that love for each other still. And there are some fun jabs that, only her mother could take her dad down with. But the bitterness is not there anymore. And I think for us, just, as actors, they're both so fantastic.
What was nice about that scene too is that we didn't have to talk. It was really written as we as people were getting to watch them, but we as characters were sort of, especially Sarah's character was going, even says, "Oh, it's so fun to watch you look like an old married couple," to which they say, "Great, thanks for ruining it." It's like, the very fact that we talked, you just shattered it. It was good until you idiots chimed in. And of course, everything my character says is like, ham-fisted. And so, why'd you guys get divorced? Oh, sorry. Just let them talk. Don't step in there.
Paul Reiser and Sarah Baker, congratulations on the third and final season of the Kominsky Method. It's such a pleasure to speak to you today. And thanks for taking the time to talk to Gold Derby.
Thank you
so much.